Welcome to Sister Mentors podcast. This is an exciting time for us. Sister Mentors has been nurturing the next generation of women of color leaders for 25 years. Our work centers around the needs and dreams of women and girls of color in the face of deep-seated institutional inequities found in the educational system. The lives of over 100 women and girls of color have been changed by Sister Mentors. These women and girls have evolved in astounding ways, and with the help of Sister Mentors, they are on their way to earning higher education degrees, particularly PhDs. In this podcast, I will speak to some of the mentors and mentees about their lives and educational journeys. These women and girls will tell their moving stories of who they are, where they come from, and how Sister Mentors was instrumental in keeping them on their educational paths. In celebration of Women's History Month, we feature one of Sister Mentors' mentees with an international perspective who is taking the heart and spirit of Sister Mentors abroad to help more young women. Meet Kedest Firdaweke, an Ethiopian storyteller who credits the organization for exposing her to experiences and opportunities that she continues to carry with her today. I am your host, Camila Adams. Thanks for joining me as we celebrate the bold past and fierce future of Sister Mentors here on the Sister Mentors podcast. Kedest, welcome to the Sister Mentors podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am fine, thanks. You just, before we started recording, you mentioned that you're preparing to go back to Ethiopia, to leave the States. How long have you been here?
It's been, I feel like 4 months now.
Oh, yeah.
Came for a long haul, yeah. I'll leave fulfilled, I think, is the best word. Because I came here to see family, and it was just great.
All right, well, cool. Well, let's go ahead and we'll start off with, who is Kedest? What are your roots? Let's talk about your parents and grandparents and all that jazz.
So, who is Kedest? I am an Ethiopian-American filmmaker. I think that's kind of career-wise what I do. Outside of that, most that know me would describe me as a free spirit, as the happy-go-lucky. I think one of the best description I got was from a friend, actually my brother-in-law, who said, "Next to Disney princesses, you're the happiest person I know." And so
that's adorable.
Yeah, I would say that. I come from a background of heavily faith-driven grandparents, but both grandparents and parents are just express and restate how important education is, and that's something that has always been instilled in us. Both didn't go through college, both parents and grandparents. So for them, us getting an education was a huge thing. I think my American experience, I'll explain it as being raised Ethiopian, but taught to be Black American, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now you were raised to be Ethiopian, but taught how to be Black American. And I'm sorry, where were you? You were born in Ethiopia?
I was born in Ethiopia and raised there until I was 8. But once we moved here, our household was continued being Ethiopian. So we spoke the language, ate the dishes. It felt like home still. But when you go to school and your teachers teach you, you're now an American. And now you're you're being taught to be part of the, I guess, American culture. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, for me, I would say I'm an Ethiopian-American, but then I'm also a Black American. It just, in the household, I think we continued the culture. We continued everything we brought with us. And there's a difference between the two. And the reason why I say that is, in Ethiopia, since it was never colonized, we were never taught how to exist in a country like America. So that's why I said in the household I'm raised Ethiopian, but then when I went through the education system, I was taught to be a Black American. An example would be being taught to work 10 times as hard, to walk into rooms, to create opportunities, to make sure that you recognize what those challenges are, who's trying to get in your way, who's trying to stop you. But really rising above all of that because you have to be an example.
Okay, so what brought your family to Alexandria?
So my dad lived in the United States prior to my full family moving here. He worked in Ethiopia as a businessman for many years through the textile industry. So he used to travel, and at one point was, I guess, given the opportunity to come live here, and he decided he wanted to do that, and then in the process realized that there's better education here. And so he's lived in the West Coast as well, but he preferred Alexandria. So that's how we ended up moving here, was because my dad saw that he wanted us to have an education in America, and felt Alexandria was the best city to do it in.
Your first impression of the United States when you got here?
I was so my first I actually didn't want to move here, and I was just like, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do this, and I was just fighting the whole process until I got to school. And I remember one of my classmates disrupting class and getting in trouble, and the teacher sending him out of the room. And so during my time in Ethiopia, my schooling in Ethiopia, punishments were very very capital, very, you get hit, you do arm raises with the hands opening and closing. There's various punishment processes, right? And I remember the teacher just, getting down on the student's level and saying, don't do that again, that's not appropriate and that's not okay. And that, I think by far that had to be my most culture shock. And I think there's nothing that still beats it to this day.
Okay, so when and why did you join SisterMentors?
Okay. This is always tricky because I think I joined either 7th or 8th grade, between the two. And the reason why I joined SisterMentors was due to a lady named Miss Stafford. Miss Stafford was the head of an after-school program called Project Step Out. And with Project Step Out, we did many things, and that program exposed us to so many things that we wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to do so. So we used to go skiing, things that just weren't part of our normal, even vacation activities. And when I think Miss Stafford and Dr. Lewis had met, and Miss Stafford transferred us over, I say us because there was a group of us, transferred us over or introduced us to Dr. Lewis and SisterMentors. So that's how I ended up joining SisterMentors, was because of Miss Stafford in middle school.
So at the time when you did join, like 7th, 8th grade, like what was your general thinking about college and your future at that time? Like, I know you mentioned that your parents were very much pro education. So at that point, there was probably no question in your mind that you were going to college.
There was no option, right? So it's like, we moved here for your education. I expect you, that's like your one job. That's what you have to do. With SisterMentors, one of the things that I was provided with, and one of the things that was kind of stated over and over again with the women getting their dissertation and the challenges that they were facing, was no doesn't necessarily mean no. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a professor or someone on your board that's saying that to you, you can question it, that you can go ahead and fight for it, as long as that's your dream, that's your passion. And it also taught us so much about goal setting, and that's one of the things we did exercise regularly as well, was setting goals, and then discussing how to achieve those goals, because we were meeting, I think, once a month at the time. We would set goals, and then a month later we'd discuss how close are you to this now, how much have you made, what's the progress. And it exposed me to the many opportunities, or the many options in education. Growing up in a foreign household or with immigrant parents, you're kind of given health fields, engineering,
Okay.
and then like specific fields that are like the safe or the okay pre-approved fields. With Sister
Okay.
Mentors, having a mentor that comes in and she's in her 60s and she's like, oh, it's never too late to get an education. It doesn't really, go on your own time. And then you have another one that's working on her dissertation about theater, and you're like, wait, what? I didn't know that that's an option. So you have these things where it's like, oh, okay. So I think I knew I had to go to college, but I didn't know that all of these majors or educational paths were available as a professional, if that makes sense.
Now, how many siblings do you have?
I have a total of 4. Well, no, wait. I lied. We're a total of 9 altogether. But the ones
There's 9
here,
siblings altogether.
all of us together, including me, is 9. But so that means I have 8 siblings. But the ones here from both parents are, came here to the United States, and I have 2 older siblings and a younger sister. So funny thing is, my younger sister, I would have to look after her. Usually, I would be the one that, I guess, babysat. We hung out together a lot, let's just say.
Right. We spent a lot of time together.
Exactly. And so one of our favorite things to do is go to the library all the time. Like almost every day, every free space was spent at the library or the playground, but mainly at the library. And so whenever we had Sister Mentors meetings, we would meet at the public library. So I would take my little sister with me, and she would just be in her own little world reading her book while I go to the meeting room, have Sister Mentors meeting, and then at the end when they give us pizza, that she would come in and kind of she would come in and join us. And so at one point Dr. Lewis was just like, if she's here all the time, she's here for the meeting times, might as well join us, right? So my little sister ended up being part of the program that way and was the youngest member of Sister Mentors. I don't know if that has changed through time, but she was the youngest member of Sister Mentors at the time. It was one of those things where at home, we always saw her as the baby, and then we would, you know how you think your younger sibling doesn't know everything quite yet, and you constantly, that's your baby. And so, and so when she came there, it was in my head, I'm like, oh, she's still a kid, and I don't know if, can she navigate through this? And I was just so worried. That I think that the first mentoring session she was with us, I just kept thinking, oh man, I don't want her to feel unsafe, start crying. I was in so much panic. Her mentor came up to me and said, wow, you have one of the most just above her age, such a mature young lady. I'm like, what? Do we know the same person?
My sister?
And it was so refreshing. And then when we started going on college trips and she started coming with us, and I see her socializing and being with everyone else, and it was just, it felt like we were there together, but we were, on 2 different sides. It was just so nice. And then finally when others joined that were her own age group, then it was just kind of like she would go with her friends, I would be over here. It was great. Okay. But
that's good. So you never had that feeling of okay, she's intruding on this is my thing.
Oh, everything was our thing. Gotcha. Like I said, that was, because both my parents were working, and again, I think this is true for most immigrant households. You're kind of responsible for the sibling that's younger than you. And so while my parents are at work, that's one of my responsibilities, is making sure I look out for her. So there was never a my thing. I've always actually been like, oh, can you join band so that we could be in band together? Can we do this together? And I'm like, can we do this together? She's like, no. I'm like, but why? So I'm always actually the one that's nudging her to come do this with me. So it was nice. It was nice to have her come with me, and I get to share this moment with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me some more about the college visits that you guys went to, or Sister Mentors. Was there one in particular that stood out to you that just like really blew your
Yes.
mind, just like opened your eyes to what you wanted to do?
Oh, what I wanted to do. No, not necessarily to what I wanted to do, but um, there was many that kind of gave us an insight, a better understanding of what the admission process would look like. So
Okay.
we would sit with the admission board, we would go sit in a class. So I felt like all of our college trips as a whole showed us that. The one thing I will say, and I don't know if I should say the school's name, but one of the universities showed me what I did not want. So I know
Okay.
it's not about really like, I know what I did not want. I know I did not want to go to PWI to the point where it's extremely visible and it's only like their athletic teams that look
Yeah.
like the diversity quota, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah.
That was just not an experience I wanted for myself. Like I said, I went to, at the time, TC Williams, now Alexandria City Public School, and having that diversity, having that background, having friends from various parts of the world, various different various religion backgrounds, right? Having all of that diverse group, and then going to PWI did not, that was not gonna be my path. So
Right.
it helped me understand what I did not want. What the one I guess it was the admission meeting that stood out to me was when we went to go visit an all-girls school. And one of the admission boards mentioned, if you can, you are a double minority in America. By being a black female, you are both a black and a female. That makes you a double minority. Try to take one of those away. And I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me, was try to take one of those away. Either go to an all black, an HBCU, or go to an all women's school. And it felt, I'm not going to lie, when I heard this as a young kid, I thought that was just so rude to say. I'm like, what? You should be telling us to go take on the world and like, you know? But I think
Right.
as I got older, I understand more and more
Right.
why that is said. When I went to college, luckily, I didn't have to think too much about it. But in terms of entering the work field, the workforce in America, it was becoming more just in my face. And ever since moving back, I now understand even more what was said in that room.
Yeah. And which one did you take away? Which school did you end up going to?
I actually didn't take any of it away. That's what I was saying. I was like, I didn't understand what she meant back then. I was just like, no, I'm going to take on the world. But because VCU was a very diverse school, and majority of the people I interacted with were similar in shade, it's just the program I entered that became a PWI, but because I studied advertising, and it was very, very much a white-dominated industry. I think white male, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. I don't know how it is now.
It
Even
probably
to the
still
point
is.
where I attended an event. Yeah. To the point where I attended an event in New York called Where Are All the Black People? Because they were trying to get more people of color to join.
Let's talk about some of your workshops with Miss Allen.
Oh, of course. I loved it. I think now it's called the Leadership Workshop. Back then it was called the Etiquette Workshop. Even though it was pretty much the same. But Miss Allen taught us, I'm going to try my best not to say because now I'm going to be aware. But it was one of those she taught us things from public speaking to how to have a 5-course meal. I didn't think burger and fries could be eaten so properly, But even then, it was just one of those things where it's like in any situation, Miss Allen, I feel like the best way I can explain Miss Allen's workshop, her leadership workshop, is she prepares you in a way that you could walk into any situation feeling confident, because you already have the knowledge to walk into it and know what you're doing. Because it could be just a 1-course meal, or it could be, you could be walking into McDonald's and you could be going into the Jefferson, and it would just be similar experience, right? I would walk in with both places with full confidence. You don't go in and think, oh, how do I stand? Where do I go? Where do I put my hand? And it would be so funny, because it would be simple as, when you're standing at a podium, where does your hand go? Or if there's no podium, what do you do with your hands in the process of you speaking? And it's things when you're sitting down and watching someone speak, you never think about. But then when you're up in front of people and you have to speak, now you're like, oh, where does my hand go? Now you become so aware of yourself that you start panicking. I feel like that's the voice Miss Allen can just quiet down for you, hush it down, like you go in and she teaches you how to go ahead and just feel confident. And if you feel nervous, and I still use some of her tactics. I recently had a press release I had to MC, and I got up on stage and got real nervous. And I said, nope, we're going to take a breath. We're going to take a breath, because that's what we can do. This is our space, though. We're going to do that. We're going to, hello, everybody. And then if you still need to take a breath, just stop, take a breath. And it was just one of those things where she allowed you to stop time. She just allowed you to learn situations she allowed you to learn so that you could walk into any situation, really, any situation, and just, okay, this is great. But I would say that our mentors, one of the things I appreciated, like I had mentioned earlier, was having a mentor who was in her 60s telling us, hey, it's never too late. You guys got this. It's okay. Having mentors who came in just to share their struggles. We're kids at the time. We barely understand what dissertation is. But when you have these older ladies coming in and they're talking about, oh, this is so difficult, this is so hard, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. So what's hard about it? It's not the focus to sit down and write. Sometimes it's literally the board. And for me, the one that stood out the most was one of the ladies who was having a really hard time with her board. She wasn't my mentor, but it was one of her stories she shared, was she was having a hard time with her board because her, I think one of the board members, if I'm not mistaken, if not a few of her board members for her dissertation, kept arguing it, wouldn't let her. She was completely done with her, is it called thesis, if I'm not mistaken? She was done with everything, her research, everything. And they just kept being hurdles. And they just kept telling her no. And she finally got advice that basically, I'm trying to find a better way, but that basically told her she needs to switch her board members, that she needs to just go find new ones. The moment she did that, everything fell into place and everything worked out, and she was able to complete her program. And so situations like that became handy. I feel like I haven't been speaking English for a while, so I'm stuttering over my words. Okay. But it became helpful to me, especially once I got to college, and I had a professor, a white female professor, who told me because of my race and my gender, I should consider switching my major. Wow. And when that professor sat down and said that to me, I was like, oh, I've heard something like this before, and no, it's not gonna happen. But right. That was a good try, because when you have somebody that's like that's older than you, that's in a program. I'm like, this is undergrad. They're getting their PhD, and it still happen. It doesn't matter what level. It was just one of those things where it's like, oh, just because a professor gets in your way does not mean you quit.
Right.
And if it was the older me, if it was me without sister mentors and having these mentors to share those stories with me, I wouldn't have known to say no, because the culture, the background in Ethiopia, what a teacher says is 100% right.
So what was your college experience like?
My college experience was also amazing. It was great. I think I transitioned to a bigger version of my high school. Again, everyone was just nice and everyone's kind. In high school, we didn't have the idea of popular and they would be members of our football team that were also in theater and choir, and it was just such a fluid high school. And I felt the same when I got to VCU. At VCU, I was more exposed to the fine arts more than I would at high school, right? So that was kind of the part that's just a little bit different, because it is a huge art school. It was a difficult situation for me a little bit, just because I originally wanted to go to school for agriculture, and that didn't work out. So VCU, since my sister had went to it, and again, parents wanting the safe route, mom was like, oh, you're going there. So then VCU became the choice for that reason. But I appreciated the full experience, and I think it was a great school overall.
So you're part of the first generation in your family to go to college. So you and your sisters.
Yes. Yes. I think it got easier over time. Our eldest, she was I think she was in 11th grade when we got here. So her college process was just a lot rushed, and she, I'm actually, honestly, I'm proud of her for making it work, because I would have, if it was me in her shoes, I think I would have felt unprepared,
Right.
But she came in 11th grade and somehow made it happen, and she was magical about it, because she barely had the program. She only had one program. It was called Project Discovery. It was an after-school program that she went through, and that's what helped her. It's all about the first generation, or the first one from your family to go off to college, and they helped with that process. But and so that was the route she took, and that helped her out a lot. But it took a lot of work from her, which was great. Now, then it got to my older sister. So there's 4 years of gap between the two. So then she has like a better route, a better understanding, better handle on the situation. For me, I felt like it was just kind of like playing on the slide. Honestly, I grew up in the school system. I got to be part of these after-school programs. Then I got SisterMentors, and it just felt like, okay, so I had my sisters holding me with one hand, and I had SisterMentors and all these other programs holding me with the other. And it's kind of like, okay, so we're going to take you walking, and and it felt guided, and it felt great. And I feel I would hope that it got even more easier for my younger sister. But yeah, we were the first ones, and it was really about helping each other out, because our parents, again, were not aware of what to do or how to go about certain situations.
You said initially you wanted to study agriculture. What did you end up studying?
I ended up studying mass communication with a concentration in advertising.
And that gets you to what is it you do now in the world?
Oh, this is... I've been trying to figure out how to better answer this for quite some time. I want to say all things creative, but that's not fair either. So I am a filmmaker and a writer. and a storyteller, I should say, altogether. But
Yes.
or a storyteller kind of encompasses it all.
I
But
believe it does. That's kind of the same route I take myself.
right,
I
like
just
I'm a
I'm a
story.
storyteller.
Yep.
Like whether
That
they be
makes sense
mine or
that way.
someone else's.
Exactly. And I think that's the best one. But so right now I work as a production manager
Okay.
for films, commercials, and documentaries. Outside of that, I also write copy for advertising and dabbled in a little bit of script writing. So really just different parts of writing and just storytelling as a whole, I think, is the best way to describe what I do.
And how much do you love it?
Oh, I love it a lot. I love it more for the fact that I get to learn in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you tell other people's stories, the more you find out about different cultures, the more you find out about the different ways of living and just existing in this world. So I think it's beautiful and I love it.
Yeah, that's great. So, and you currently you live in Ethiopia. What is it about Ethiopia that draws you, that appeals to you to want to live there during this phase of your life?
I think it was the fact that I didn't want to come in the beginning, and then since I was young, I've always wanted to go back, and my idea was to just go back and try it out for just a year.
Mm-hmm.
And see what I can do with it. But during the time of my move, there was just a lot happening in terms of work, and it just didn't feel internally, it just did not feel like I was in the right place. I would always feel like there was an appointment that I had that I forgot about, or that I just did not feel like I was where I needed to be physically.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to explain it better, but I think that's just the best way. And it felt like I needed to be elsewhere. And then it just a series of prayers and going to church and listening to different teachings. And then finally reading The Alchemist. And having that internal, like, the crystal shop owner who has always wanted to go to Mecca versus like the bread shop owner who was just so happy to be where he's at. And so it was a matter of, I just wanted to be the bread shop owner. I just wanted to finally do the one thing I've always said I wanted to do. So I just got up and went for a year. And 5 years later, I'm still not able to move back because I can't see myself living here, or really just currently not anywhere else right now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you found your space. You found your tribe,
very much.
so to speak, and that's like kind of where you want to be. But what are, like, if you were to take two of the best things from each country, from the U.S. and Ethiopia, what would those be?
The two things, okay. So for America, I would take the financial structure. So the way that someone can finance to buy a house, to buy a car, as well as the banking system. I would love that over there. But, and then my personal education experience. I can't speak for everybody else, but my personal education experience, I wish I could take back with me. I wish I can take just the PBS programs I watch, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Magic School Bus. I want to take it all. That's the part that I think part of my childhood, you know? The two things I love about Ethiopia really is the potential that the country has for growth.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much that one can do just by existing. You really don't have to do much. Just by you existing, people will have questions. Because there's just this thirst for growth, this hunger that exists there that just drives you to want to do more. Outside of that, the human interaction in Ethiopia, even in our language, I love it. And there's words like aizush that I can't translate. It's like, or inane, like if somebody is feeling bad, it's almost like saying it's okay, or I really don't know how to explain it. But there are certain parts of our language that is part of comforting. It's just part of the language is just really, and even when we're having meals, if I was to start eating, I wouldn't just eat by myself. I would invite you to eat with me first.
Gotcha.
I'd say, oh, come, let's eat. It's just,
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, you never know. Come, let's eat. And it could be a stranger, it could be a friend, but if you've had like a few conversations, that's part of it's embedded in the language, and it's embedded in the people, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a more humane, there's just a little more humanity and compassion.
Yes.
What are you passionate about, and did Sister Mentors help you in any way to drive that passion?
I think to answer this question, it becomes difficult because at the time I was in Sister Mentors, or I was going through the program, I don't think I had a specific passion. I knew I had a great deal of interests. I knew that there was a lot of things that I wanted to do, but was there a specific passion? Not necessarily, but they did help me weed through the different ideas and different thoughts and different interests that I had.
Okay.
I would say currently, my interest is to have in Ethiopia, I would like to have, I don't know if it's a mentoring program, but I would love to have the support system that Sister Mentors had here within the professional working women there.
Gotcha.
Especially the young adults. And so that's kind of a conversation me and Dr. Lewis were having my trip this time around, was discussing ways on how to do that, what's the best way to get started, because I love that support system that existed here. It wasn't about, let's be friends and kumbaya, let's sit around. It was really about, okay, this is your goal. How do you get there? Even if it's like, I have to push you and I have to be mean about, not mean, but like, if I have
aggressive,
to just
assertive.
Exactly, assertive about it, I will be, to get you to where you want to be. And it was focused on achieving your goals, getting you to where you want to be, seeing your full potential, and just making sure you tap into it. And so I want that type of system there. I want to have those discussions where women could come and have a space to talk about, okay, well, this is the challenges I see at work, including harassments and sexual advances. Those are not talked about enough. And especially in our field, in offices, it just happens so much, to the point where, because we are just growing and just tapping into our career path, speaking up about it may blacklist us. And so that's
God.
also a fear. And so just having those discussions and those conversations, and just creating a safe space for women altogether within the professional world, I think then we can start working in other things. But so it was just that was one of the discussions I was having with Dr. Lewis. So I feel like back then, not so much. Now with this, I guess, passion, or this project that I want to do, Dr. Lewis has been very helpful in providing me with advice on how to go about it.
Well, I think it's amazing that you want to take on that challenge or that goal. And you know what? I have faith in you that you will be able to go ahead and succeed in that. And I send you all sorts of love and support in that sense. So
I receive it. Thank you.
So this has been, I have very much enjoyed you telling your story and then allowing me to go ahead and retell it in the same time. And so, as from one storyteller to another, I have enjoyed you. Is there
Thank you.
any place online or anything like where people can find you, or your work, or things like that you would like to go ahead and?
Currently, I'm working on the portfolio, so I don't want to give that out quite yet. But
Yes, right on. That's totally fair.
my full name on Instagram, that's where I'll start sharing some content about my work altogether. It would be my full name, Kedest_Firdaweke. It's KEDEST_FIRDAWEKE on Instagram. And that's where I think I will be posting about my portfolio once it's done, other things I'll be working on, because I might be tapping into some marketing work when I get back. So everything will be on there.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing yourself.
And happy 25th anniversary to Sister Mentors, before I forget.
Yes, absolutely. For more information on Sister Mentors, a project of EduSeed, please visit sistermentors.org. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Sister Mentors. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts, and don't be afraid to share. This podcast was produced by Rugged Angel Productions for Sister Mentors.